What is your current work drama? I work in daycare, preschool. We have several mothers on our staff. A couple of them breastfeed and pump at work. Someone took some pumped breast milk out of the fridge, and no one knows who. It has caused a lot of drama and accusation. The other thing going on is a mother keeps dropping her 3-year-old son off in a dress. Not a big deal. Plenty of boys like dresses and princess stuff. The issue is he hates it. So there's been a pretty big debate about it. Story 2. We've had our break room taken away again. I've been there many years, and this is at least the 5th break room they've taken away from us by repurposing them to something else. And yet somehow every time management is shocked that people are upset when the break room disappears. Story 3. There's always plenty of it at the zoo. We just had an all-keepers meeting today, and we did our usual routine of huddling together with other keepers in the same department as us because we can't stand the smell of anyone else. I work with big cats, and everyone says we smell like cat pee X100 all the time. Come on, it's not that bad. Where's those sea lion penguin keepers? Ugh, can't get near them, even after they claim they showered. Story 4. The main office has been going back and forth for months on whether or not they should allow a casual Friday and allow admins to wear jeans. It has caused a lot of contention between those who believe that non-holy jeans should be classified as business attire and those who don't like any sort of change. I'm sitting here in one of the satellite offices in jeans and flip-flops on a non-Friday, as I always wear. Story 5. 2 team leader roles were filled by new hires who never worked at the company, and they have no idea what to do. So it's been like a month of growing pains, and the teams aren't feeling strong morale. It's just a crafty situation for everyone involved. Story 6. There's a girl in another department who treats everyone like dog crap. She's really rude over the headsets and in general just has a problem with all of us. I must have crossed her in a past life or something. Anyway, she's apparently being promoted to a manager position, and nobody is happy about it. Story 7. Owner of the plaza hired people to come in to help fix the business without the store owner's blessing. Turns out that these people are con men, and they pushed my previous employers out. Now everyone is quitting. Story 8. The woman that started in August 2021 has decided she can no longer work in the same office as the woman that started in February 2022. It might be that the newer woman is already way more competent and knowledgeable than the one that's been with us since August. Apparently, August got jealous and felt left out when February got some training. August has had that training like 2 or 3 times and still doesn't do things properly. Story 9. I just got out of the Navy. I started working at a very nice workplace that genuinely cares about its employees and is all around a great place to work. I was hired a week before another person who just got out of the Army. We both got along well for the first day. I quickly realized he wouldn't stop talking about the Army and always found a way to compare everything he learned in training to things he experienced in the Army. After a while, it got old. Being in the military as well, I quickly realized he didn't shake off his old personal habits that certain people, the brown-nosers, seem to have in the military, i.e. being pushy, excessive, arrogant, stealing ideas, complete know-it-all. I mean, cutting off the instructor before they even finish showing them what to do. And of course, they're never wrong. Like I said earlier, this workplace is a very nice one. Lots of healthy-minded people not very used to the dark, humored, and grungy mentality that some, if not most veterans, tend to have. His way of interacting raised a few eyebrows, and I think he noticed. He turned it down a notch or two once. He noticed nobody was out to cut each other's throats and nobody was hostile in the workplace. Everyone has each other's backs here. After a few times of putting him in his place by calling him out or making comments like, "It's okay to ask for help," or "It's okay to be wrong," I always did it in front of the instructors that he was trying to interrupt. He'd turn red and I knew he hated it. He noticed I was getting along with some of the instructors pretty well just because I was being genuine. He must have overheard me talking about a book I read about the company, because the next day he has the same book and is walking around with it. This was drama I thought I had escaped from in the military, but I guess it followed me here of all places. Story 10. Not me, but my husband has a coworker that announces his activities to everyone, making everyone uncomfortable. The top one is, he announces to the office that he's going to the bathroom for his 20-min crap. Husband and several others have told him to stop. Been reported to HR, but nothing. Story 11. There is no drama, and everyone is working efficiently because we are still work from home. But they are thinking of going back in office. Why? It's been 2 years. We proved we can do it. Just keep us at home. Story 12. Bunch of family and friends have died in the last week. There's 20 of us in my office. The owner's mom just suddenly died a few days ago. My own childhood friend died over the weekend. Another coworker's sister-in-law just died of brain cancer Monday. Another coworker's father-in-law had a stroke and is going to die probably today or tomorrow. A former coworker, who we are all still friends with, father just died. And while it occurred a few weeks ago, Our biggest client announced the death of one of their owners earlier this week. Lots and lots of death. We are all in a bit of a trance. Story 13. We have been noticing small, mysterious changes over the last month in our office. A square of brand new carpet being torn up and replaced in a hallway. The runner in front of the cafeteria disappeared, and a few weeks later, we got a brand new one. Parts of the hallways have been strangely roped off. We also just had security cameras installed in all of the walkways. The situation was finally brought up and discussed in a private meeting. An employee has been pooping randomly throughout the building during business hours. These have been rather large piles of poop that people have narrowly missed stepping in. This is a very professional workplace, which makes this entire situation all the more perplexing. This person is still on the loose, and it could be anyone. Story 14. Oh, so I work in a haunted house that has many different businesses inside it. One of which is a cafe that recently got a new manager within the past 6 months, and everything went downhill. This cafe stopped paying their bills and electricity before COVID-19. Now the people in charge of the business center had enough. Their rent is about £450 a month because it's a big space and they use a lot of electricity. The cafe's lease was up and they had make no claims to renew it, so the managers asked the cafe to leave because they had that many complaints about the cafe and they weren't paying bills. They refused to leave, so the managers took the cafe to court, and the only reason they'd leave is that if the business center took on the cafe staff, I don't know any more than this, because they had been to court. The cleaners had been told to stop cleaning the cafe toilets. Fair, right? Well, the cafe started stealing things from the normal toilets, like toilet rolls. I'm not going to expose where I work's name, so I'm using because for business center, not the house's name. So one of the cleaners in black Sharpie wrote, because inside the toilet rolls, and when she went to check the toilets and they were gone, she went to look in the cafe toilets and there they were. Toilet rolls marked. Because now, 2 months since they refused to leave, they left on April 1st after the manager sent a mass email out to everyone except the cafe, explaining that the cafe had not been paying their bills and had refused to leave their studio upon being asked. This email was sent to the head of the company in charge of the cafe, the private email to the 45 studio holders. The manager of the cafe then threatened to take the manager of the business center to court for sharing the information. The information anyone could have found out by looking at the public records. When the cafe finally left, they left notes on the doors saying that they were closed, with things along the lines of, "It was not our decision to leave. The decision was withheld from our staff, but they left," bad-mouthing the people in charge. So they had till Wednesday the 6th of April, yesterday, to remove all their stuff from the studio, except when the cleaner went upstairs to clean their toilets. There was writing on the window, things like "cafe closed, house fault," "cafe closed, local jobs lost," "cafe closed, house fault," "ask house why," and yeah, they left, and that's been the drama for 4 months. Story 15. Female coworker is mad at me because I told her best friend I don't date coworkers. Come to find out, the girl likes me and I rejected her apparently. Later on, someone asked if I was fired if me and the girl would date. I said no. I'm not about to get fired to date a girl when I have bills to pay. Been bullcrap every day since then. Wanted to add today's interaction and just show how pissed she is. She works morning and I nights. I maybe work an hour or 2 with her a day. Well, every day I ask how the previous night close was to make sure it was perfect and everything was good. Well, got no answer from her, so I figured she didn't hear me, and she walked away. Later on, asked her again, and nothing. Another coworker comes in, and she is steadily talking to him, asking how his day is and all that. No issue, but she refuses to talk to me. You win some, you lose some. It is what it is. Story 16. My boss owns 2 bookstores. I work in the one where he doesn't. Over the last years, my boss's incompetence became clearer every day. A former colleague started with 40 hours per week and was cut down to 20 hours because of financial reasons. He just wanted him to go, and instead of firing him, he wanted my colleague to quit. It worked. Then he hired someone new. She's competent, knows what she's doing, and had a very high position in her former job. Instead of working with her to accomplish new things, he uses her as a help for both stores. Sometimes she works in bookstore A, sometimes she works in B. He quickly shut her down by just don't giving a duck what she has to say. Then there's the money. The people in bookstore A, that's where my boss works too, get more money in vacation and Christmas bonus. We don't. In bookstore B, we don't have a manager or something like that. We are on our own. When we need something like toilet paper, we have to call him and ask for it. In November, our heating system broke. Last week, it finally got repaired. I have one colleague who is using all of that for her advantage. She wants to be the boss and acts like it. My boss knows about that. I once called him to warn him that I am currently her target and that he shouldn't believe everything she says. His response was, yeah, that again, well, what should I do? She's unfriendly to our customers. She takes private phone calls when she's at work and sometimes gets so angry on the phone to a point where customers came to me to voice their concern about that. She doesn't do anything. She takes the smallest issues and makes the biggest problem out of it and acts like she just solved climate change. She is a real Karen. Everyone is annoyed by her. We talked about how we all don't want to go to work when she's there. I collect as many work as I can find to do at the basement, where my office is, over the week so I can be down there when she's here. It's really exhausting, and she's one of the many reasons I quit, and why another colleague is going to quit too. Story 17. Not too long ago, the place I work was shut down because of credible threats against the employees, and now we see cops all the time. We don't know where the threats came from exactly. The police didn't share it with us. If you guessed that I'm a teacher, you are correct. Story 18. I work at a hair salon, and boy, do some women love drama. The assistant manager is the most unprofessional person I've ever met. She not only says things like "duck me" in front of clients, but dishes the worst attitude to them if their tone is even remotely different. One chick has 2 boyfriends. One of them she lives with, and he's the main financial provider. He works overnight, so while he's working hard, she's ducking her second boyfriend, who is her main boyfriend's arch nemesis from high school. Buff that she lives with has no idea, and the side piece boyfriend doesn't know that she moved into a house with the main boyfriend. She'll leave work early because she doesn't feel good to go and see her side piece at his mom's house. Another chick cheated on her baby daddy with a friend of 15 years. The friend's GF found out and now makes fake client accounts to fill her book up with non-existent clients just to duck with her. Another chick got married after 3mo of knowing the guy because they're both super religious and waited until marriage. They've now been together for around 5 years and have never once had sex with the lights on. Story 19. I babysit a couple of kids twice a week. The mom keeps bringing them here sick and purposely not telling me ahead of time. The most recent issue this week is her son has a stomach virus. I'm not catching that as I'm 8 weeks pregnant and already puking enough. Plus, my son is barely over the croup she brought into this house 2 weeks ago. He still hasn't gotten his voice back. I know kids pass sickness around a lot, and I know daycares are notorious for this, but I'm not a daycare. I charge her way less than I should, and she has zero respect for me or my family. I told her she can't bring the kids here this time until they've both recovered. She lied and said the doctor told her the kid is fine, but earlier in the day, she said she never brought him in and didn't know if he had a fever because the thermometer's off, but he feels fine. She lies a lot. I'm just tired of her pushing and pressuring. She knew her son had croup 2 weeks ago and also knew we were going to visit my husband's grandma that weekend and still dropped them off sick as duck. What really got me is we had to cancel a visit to GMA's a couple weeks earlier because she did the same thing. GMA just had the big virus back in February, so we can't risk making her sick with an RSV-type cold. But does this woman care? No, I'm torn between telling her to find a new sitter and continuing this whole thing because my son has fun with the kids. To add to it, her 4-year-old isn't fully potty trained, and it just makes things harder. And it takes over an hour to get her 2-year-old to nap. But she is so rude about she thinks I can just leave my kid up in his crib, crying because hers won't go down. She gets really mad if he gets a late nap. So I guess that's my current work drama. As a stay-at-home mom who watches some kids. Story 20. Restaurant manager here. I have 2 brothers who are on the top of the server chain. Older brother has been in love with a waitress for 6 months. Unfortunately, waitress had a boyfriend for those 6 months. Waitress ends up breaking up with deadbeat boyfriend and moves into the house with older brother who also lives with younger brother. After less than a week, waitress and older brother fight, and waitress slept a younger brother out of what I would say is spite. Calamity at work ensues. Story 21. I'd say the bird flu is the biggest factor in it. There's none yet, but there probably will be. I work at a chicken farm. With the bird flu going around, we got new safety measures. Now we all follow these measures to a T. The supervisors who only come around once a month, not so much. The thing about our supervisors is that they are responsible for all the farms in the area, so they are constantly going from one farm to another and another. My past experiences with them was having to pick up empty bottles and plastic bags in the barns that they just left. Even though there's a big-ass trash can on the way out of the barn, they just leave it wherever they finish it. So I already know that they aren't really all that concerned about what they bring into the barns, and I guarantee bird flu is going to be one of the things they leave behind. Then guess who they're going to blame for getting the birds sick? I'll give you a hint. It won't be themselves. Story 22. Working at a retail pharmacy where the hours are being cut severely nationwide while we're expected to keep up with what we did when we had more hours. While customers care to low-level employees, while upper management gets bonuses due to stock increases, and all the good employees are leaving for better jobs. Crap's wild when you experience it firsthand. Story 23. So at the job I quit, the other security guards have been harassing my friend who stayed. She has caught them selling substances, messing with the sensitivity that triggers the cameras so they can sleep without being caught, bringing a gun, and been threatened by both guys. One where he got in her face on camera, and the other where he left crazy religious stuff that was threatening. She told the security company repeatedly every step of the way. Now, the person who signed the contract just found out what the guards have been up to. She's also let him know that her supervisor for the company has been aware since day one and hasn't done anything. I'm hoping the security company loses this contract. They allowed me and a lot of other people to be abused by another guard and didn't do anything for a year and a half. At least 5 other people complained about that guy. Story 24. Being asked to work longer hours when my contract states 40 HR weeks. Already getting bottom of the barrel pay for my position, and these extra hours are putting me at an hourly pay similar to what I was making before I got promoted. Much rather take my old position back and shed all the extra responsibility that I took on with the promotion. Our company also had a bunch layoff about a month ago, which added more work to my plate. Now my coworker and right-hand man is in the hospital and will probably be off the job for a month or more. Might not return at all. Also finding out that the next project I will be working on will buy with my boss's son, and me and my boss already don't get along, so I don't anticipate that change going well. I haven't worked directly with his son too much, but I haven't heard good things from those who have. Also, one of my employees is quitting for the same position at a different company, but they're offering for more an hour, and now others are starting to ask where he's going because they want to do the same. We were already short on labor before this and will struggle if they don't fill his position immediately. But I already know they will take their sweet ass time, doing so if they do so at all. This place feels like it's falling apart and nickel and diming wherever they can to save a buck. Story 25. There was a director sitting in an office by himself behind my desk. He walks out of the office and runs out for lunch. I get a phone call, and it was a company I was interviewing with. So I run into his office since it was empty, and his lunch usually takes time. So anyways, I'm in there taking this call and talking with their HR about the interview process and stuff. All of a sudden, the tinga tostada I had for lunch starts putting in the work on my gut. I just get the urge to fart. So I squat, farted, and finished the call and walked out to my desk like nothing happened and closed the door behind me to his office. He comes back from lunch and has his chops bag in his hand and asks how we're doing, blah, blah, and walking into his office when he gets a call from his wife. And all of a sudden, I just hear him going, "What the duck? Who crap in my desk?" Coughs a lot and pukes out his kale salad, the corn, dried tomatoes, and pieces of chicken just everywhere. The drama is trying to find who farted. So for the past 3 months, I've been going into his office and asking, "You ever find out who farted in your office that one time?" Story 26. My 2 coworkers just spent an hour and a half debating whether removing the wolves from Yellowstone actually benefited the area. Our jobs have nothing to do with this subject. Story 27. At the school my wife works at, Montana, go figure, one of the teachers is trying to ban the use of buck ragging for child discipline in school. They've used it there for 15 plus years now when paddling became less acceptable. Instead of a paddle, their vice principal buys a buck rag from a goat farmer. Apparently easy to do online. You just open the jar's lid and hold it under a kid's nose for 2 to 3 minutes. It stinks. Apparently it's been super effective, but now a couple teachers are concerned it's too harsh, unethical, or complaining that it disrupts the class when the kid comes back stinking. But most parents don't seem to want to get rid of it. Story 28. I work in an office department, but only report directly to one guy. A coworker just retired, and I was given a share of their responsibilities along with a small raise. Also, the most substantial one I've received since signing on with this co. Slightly altering the hierarchy. I still report to the one guy primarily for my original job, but was first informed of it all by the dept heads who apparently did not inform my direct boss at all. Now he's acting all butthurt about it and being kind of passive-aggressive towards me. It's not a big deal, and I'm not too worried about it, but it's happening. Story 29. I work in the transportation department, school buses, of my town's public school district. A lot of the drivers are currently very annoyed because the higher-ups in the district have suddenly decided that elementary school students cannot be let off of the buses in the morning until the school bell rings. When prior to this decision, the drivers would just let their students off of the bus as soon as they pulled up to the school, and it wasn't an issue till now, for some strange reason. As a result of this, some of the drivers are now choosing to start their morning run a little bit later than they normally would, just to avoid having to sit in front of the elementary school for 10+ minutes with a bunch of anxious grade schoolers. A few parents drove their kids in themselves because they thought they had missed the bus due to not being aware of the change in policy. While our boss agrees with the drivers who are upset about the sudden change, his hands are kind of tied. Oh, and there's also the whole thing with the school wanting extra buses for sports trips, despite our boss constantly reminding them that we only have just so many drivers who are able, willing to do said trips. Story 30. A kid who spent the last 2 months playing on his phone, sucking up hard to the new management so he can be in charge. I'm in sales and he's actively stealing leads, setting more appointments than he can handle, and expecting the world to help him, throwing fits when things don't go his way. We have a meeting today in 20 minutes. I might lose my job if they are buying his crap. Turns out I wasn't the only one pissed at Mr. Cherry Picker. He's been going through everyone's leads and cherry-picking ones that had notes like, out of town until X date, or waiting on their Tesla to arrive selling on X date, all the while ignoring his leads. Mr. Douche ended up losing a few deals, and our leads are now our leads, like it's always has been. Now the little crap is refusing to talk to anyone, so win all around. Story 31. Two tardies had a fistfight over a girl both of them rooted. The issue wasn't cheating, it was who'd duck her better. Also, the apprentice switched out the almost flat battery packs in our drills and impact gun to completely flat ones because the boss forgot to charge them, and that caused a crap storm mid-job to the point the apprentice quit over the boss's duck-up. Story 32. I work at a small investment firm. Boss is oblivious and micromanager. A marketing associate just left and they want me to cover for him, and I am not in marketing. Additionally, our business admin is leaving on maternity soon. I am also expected to pick up her workload as well. It is not my role and too much on my plate. However, I'm leaving in the summer before going back to school. They have no clue about this, which is going to be fun, as I'm creating the drama by leaving. Story 33. Not current, but fairly recent work drama. I was working at a sales job where we spent a lot of time in the office. I noticed two employees, one male and one female, were getting kind of close and it was interfering with their work. The girl was engaged to another girl, so I thought they were just friends or whatever. Some time went by until she told my friend in the office that she slept with that guy. I started to get confused by what was going to happen next. About another month went on of them having an affair, and she announced to the office that she was pregnant. I was shocked. It was like some drama movie. A few more weeks went by until she must have told her fiancé. They all decided to move in together and start a family. 2 moms and 1 dad. To this day, they are still living together, and honestly, it is a little weird to me. But it must be easier to take care of the baby. Story 34. Everyone is quitting and it's Raven's fault. I work in an office, we sell vehicles, so obviously we need people to pull titles. This is typically a 2-person job. For a long time, we had 2 ladies, Sam and Raven, work together. It was fine. Everyone got their titles and there were no delays. Sam and Raven had problems, but Sam didn't let them get to her. Well, Sam retired in December 2020, and ever since then, Raven's attitude has kept the department from keeping that position filled. Raven likes to make comments and make people uncomfortable. On one occasion, Raven told me that I hang out with a lot of men, inferring that I'm flirtatious or escorty, which caught me by surprise. Our most recent hire was amazing. She was funny and learned the job quickly. But very soon, the new hire was running out of the office in tears on more than one occasion and eventually quit. HR was notified, but has done nothing because technically, Raven's not doing anything large to warrant firing her. It's just bullying, I guess. What should we, as a department, do? We got someone new to pull titles. They had a diabetic episode, and the ambulance and police were called to get him insulin. Raven took an early lunch and on her way out said, "I don't know what's wrong with him. He's crazy." The most insensitive thing I've ever heard. Story 35. Supervisor was annoyed because my coworker didn't initial the cap on her water bottle while they were both working at a remote location with one other employee. She asked whose bottle it was, and my coworker said mine. Then the supervisor threw the bottle at her feet while she wasn't looking. Supervisor may get fired. Story 36. I work PT at a college. One of the instructors was complained on by numerous students in the same class. He was running his fingers in a female's hair and was talking about a big black dildo. When he finished his story, he looks at the black guy and said, "You know what I'm talking about." He's under investigation and banned until it's completed. Story 37. My direct supervisor is an absolute and complete control freak. It never bothers me as I'm adaptable, and honestly, she's smart as a whip, and a lot of what she's anal about makes sense. Plus, I serve as a liaison between her as off-site supervisor and me as field supervisor with the field staff. So I'm able to catch things before they get to her and get my field team in trouble. However, other departments are getting pissed off really quick about her overstepping her bounds. I just have to giggle when she tells me about it because I can see both sides. She often knows what she's talking about, but sometimes it's just plain overkill. And they're worried she will scare people off. I just sit back and watch and occasionally smooth things over. But that's the big drama, really. Otherwise, my company's pretty chill. I've been stuck in the middle of nowhere for 2 weeks now and can't wait to get home. But such is life for field support. Story 38. I'm being asked to relocate from a low cost of living city to the highest costing metro area in the US, to be in office only 3 days per week. No in-person interactions are necessary to do this role. I've been successfully doing the same job remotely for over 2 years now. My housing costs would go from less than 20 take-home pay to over 80. That's for a 300 square foot studio in not-so-safe areas. This includes a 60-minute commute each way to and from the office. Public transit to get to the office does not have a monthly plan and would cost an additional $16 to $17 per office visit, or nearly $1K per month between gas, tolls, and parking if I drove instead. Company is not providing any cost of living adjustment whatsoever to cover these disparities. Lastly, I'd be moving from a no-income tax state to one of the highest income tax states in the US. So take-home pay would also decrease 14%. The choice is obvious here. What would you do in this situation? I'd love to read any and all opinions on you have. Story 39. New CEO after my uncle passed away. Proceed to fire the plant manager, same one since the company was created. Both head machinist engineers. New quality manager who doesn't even know how to set zeros on micrometers, or even read a vernier scale, or even how to use a CMM. Fired the maintenance lead, who worked at Gusher for 20 years, combined quality and maintenance together for new guy to lead. Removed all overtime, because the new hires that quotes the jobs appear to have 5 months of experience, then try to scramble and wonder why, to keep people on the shop floor when they put in 2 weeks. I've been second shift lead for quite some time now. They're not giving out raises as they should, even after many times of losing my crap in the conference room. For company wellness meetings, machinists, I know, who are without a doubt the foundation of this company, need more, and with them not doing anything. I've been spending the last 3 or 4 months making phone calls to other companies, getting my guys, my team jobs they deserve with pay that is respectful. Sort of a rant, apologies. Story 40. Problems with my shift schedule and COVID testing. I work at a pool and a colleague got sick with COVID on Sunday, so I'm required to get myself tested for COVID every day before coming into work. Yesterday, the test result didn't come in. They forgot, and I had the shift with a coworker who always gives me crap if I'm late to work, despite him being late himself often. Let's call him. So I came into work without my result and got crap for that, and afterwards got crap for being late to my shift when I finally got my result 10 minutes later. At the end of the day, he told me I can come into work 30 minutes earlier so I'm on time. That day I already left home an hour before my shift starts, and my commute is maybe 15 minutes. In addition, changed the entire week's shift schedule. So now I got the same crap 9+ hour shift as last week, even though this week I was supposed to have the regular 8-hour closing shift. Why? But he knows. His changes only make sense if he has appointments. I really hate stupid piece of crap. Story 41. Currently, my retail store has a women's employee who is expected to run the fitting room bars, the front bar, fix all the runs with clothing, and run big bars from the back out onto the floor. I am in charge of the fitting room where we organize everything, and I can't leave the counter. The women's employee is constantly overwhelmed, and my bars don't get run on time because of that. And we are both pissed they won't put 2 people in women's or the fitting room. And whenever we need breaks covered, they ignore us. Plus, at our morning huddle, our manager said they're getting in trouble for scheduling too many people. So they're cutting 50 hours off next week's schedule. I can't wait to quit here. Story 42. Can I cheat by giving work drama from the place my mom last worked at? Very long story short, mom quit job due to problems with arthritis. Supervisor appeals the unemployment claim. Literally no reason for her to do that. The business wouldn't have had to pay anything for the unemployment claim and wouldn't even have taken a hit on their insurance because of it. Supervisor, who wasn't even an employee, just a volunteer, don't ask me the logic there, spends a huge amount of time on her side of the appeal bringing up random crap that my mom said in passing about things that happened 30 years ago, and also at one point brings up that my mom said something about her supervisor's kid being sick. Supervisor frames it like my mom was making some disgusting ableist accusation against supervisor's daughter, who has ADHD or something, when in reality, my mom had just been complaining that the daughter had pink eye, and the supervisor kept bringing her to the office during COVID times while infected with pink eye. Supervisor is just full of absolute bullcrap work drama for no ducking reason. Story 43. In my old department, the sisters who had an affair with a married coworker got his wife fired, and I'm pissed about it. The wife was my favorite coworker. Loved being able to have fun with someone while I'm stalking. I always ignored her husband. He seemed sleazy to me. Definitely noticed the older sister chasing him around. Come to find out he was kissing both of them at the same time in the younger sister's car. Don't know how they never got in trouble, because the husband was put on leave. Management knew about the situation and asked the husband to be more careful before it blew up. Ridiculous coming from a company who has core family values. The whole store found out because his wife told everyone who would listen. Days are pretty quiet for me now. All my work friends are gone. I did confront the older sister about it. Now I get dirty looks all the time when I go to my locker. It just bothers me that all the older married managers have protected them and made very clear that we cannot talk about it. Story 44. I work in the administration department of a hospital. Not only are we being bought out, That's enough drama as is, because we think the reason they're selling out our billing department is to become a for-profit hospital. One of my coworkers on my shift is being called out by everybody for not working, as in like at all, like showing up to work and just watching Netflix all night. And the will they or won't they fire them, one of my coworkers just had a shotgun wedding with their pastor about 6 months after their husband, who was the hospital chaplain, passed from COVID. One coworker is pregnant and is going through the second trimester of her first pregnancy, and here I am going to a Lady Gaga concert with my boss. It pays to be the office pet, I guess. Story 45. There's a woman that keeps either not showing at all or leaving in the middle of the day because her kid is sick. Conveniently, this kid's only sick on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays of practically every week. This woman was granted Wednesdays off because her cat's on a diet and she has to make sure it's eating right. No, I'm not lying. There's a debate between the other workers. Some of them believe the kid's actually sick basically every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and the rest of us aren't buying her crap and feel that instead of going home, she should be taking that kid to a scientist. I feel like they'd be interested in having a study opened up on children that are only sick on certain days of the week. It also doesn't help that she never provides proof of her kid being sick since my work isn't allowed to ask for it. All she has to do is leave her workstation, go into the bathroom, come out again and say, "My son's sick, I got to go." Story 46. I work 2 jobs, in a COVID test lab and in a retail store. COVID test lab is attached to an Excel testing location. We had to hear over the news that the location would be closed at the end of May. Zero communication from the operators to us. That, coupled with changed testing regulations, means 5 of us got let go immediately and I got cut back to 1 day a week. We're all still kind of in shock over it. Other job doesn't have a lot of drama right now. A bunch of coworkers left due to better wages elsewhere or other stuff going on. Lots of us are UNI students. And in my 3 years of employment there, I've already watched over 12 managers come in and leave within a few months. Story 47. My work is trying to implement a new timekeeping tool. It's for the manager's benefit so they can budget according to project workload. But the only reason they're making us change systems is because they apparently refuse to hire more IT personnel. It's easier to make the hundreds of people do the calculations of their time than ask one person, presumably one IT guy, to do it for the hundreds of people. Some manager arguing with the confused boomers in the Zoom meeting. This is a multi-billion-dollar company, BTW. Story 48. Nepotism. Every non-entry-level hire in the past couple years, except for one, has been a friend or former work colleague of the boss. That one exception was also an external hire. Every open position has had multiple well-qualified internal applicants. Story 49. It's mostly my own, related to a coworker. I know the guy's in his 50s and that he works 2 jobs, ours full-time, another night job part-time. He sleeps most of the time while he's here, like nodding off at his desk whenever he's not actively working on something. He's a locksmith, and from what I can tell, he's good when he's aware and working, but if there's nothing, he nods off. Sometimes, even with a pencil in hand. He has a past history of substances use, which probably adds to my frustration with him. He makes probably twice what I do, but while I'm given tasks ranging from helping customers to teaching my boss's nephew how to forward an email, true story, he can be asleep and make more money. Story 50. Oh, where do I start? Sold business, stayed on. They're on the second general manager, second service manager, second service writer. This all within a year, and they each leave about the same time. I'm working in service but have done each of their jobs for 20 plus years. Short-staffed with no help in this industry field for this type of work. The second under me is leaving and hasn't let them know yet. I am 6 months away from not having to worry about a non-compete. I will be leaving them as well, starting a competing company and taking 75% of their service business. They are so Captain Smith on the Titanic right now. It is Smith, right? Anyway, I asked for a raise because crap's about to get real and I got lip service. I could do something else, but I can't look away from this train wreck. Story 51. A little love triangle going on. Our assistant manager, F.A.E. and one of the chefs, M19, currently live next to each other above our pub, and he started forming a little crush on her. They had a snog on a night out and continue to flirt, but she's due BJ him off to keep it professional. Now she's moving to our supervisor, F30, and has told her she's got a thing for her. Supervisor is skeptical about the age gap, but apparently they're going out for dinner now. Time for a little chat with the manager, because London aren't the place for that nonsense. Story 52. The owner chooses to work 3 days a week, but then calls himself out every shift, requiring someone to come in on their scheduled day off. We've told him to stop scheduling himself, but he refuses, even though he doesn't actually work the shifts. I've told him not to call me because I won't come in, but the others haven't, and still come when called. I told them if they all say no, he has no choice, because otherwise, no one will be there to work, but they prefer to Karen and moan apparently. Story 53. Me and my dad work as a mechanic. We go into junkyards and we pull parts to sell. My dad has to provide for the family, so he goes in at 6 a.m. to be the first one. There's this guy, he always goes way earlier than everyone, and is beating my dad every single time. We are going broke because of this. This past Monday, that guy and my dad almost got into a fight. My dad was distrusted. He didn't say anything offensive at all. The guy continued to curse at my dad. So every morning, my dad takes a gun. Because in the past, when I didn't go, he would tell me that every time the guy would look for a reason to scream at my dad. So yeah, I'll keep y'all updated. Story 54. I work at a gas station where I got no training because the coworker that was assigned to train me is too lazy. She sits on her ass and talks to her friends on the phone while dealing with costumers and gets me to do half of her crap for her. She also goes on breaks whenever she wants to and only helps me learn how crap works if the owners or the guy she likes are in the store. Small town. But what the Karen doesn't know is that my cousin owns the store and I'm going to report her ass. Doesn't help that she's always making TikToks at the front counter. I got all the proof I need. Don't should have went to college, same story 55. Well, I recently found out my manager, who everybody absolutely loved, is a pathological liar. I found out because he said he didn't snitch on me, but investigations followed up with information that would, without a doubt, suggest that he completely threw me under the bus. Then a lot of other strange past actions that contradicted his words all just snapped into place and made sense. Yeasted out of my job as quickly as I could, currently looking for a new one. I'm pretty stressed out right now, to be honest. I'm extra pissed off because he was a manager who broke every rule in the book. Story 56. Our contract renewal has not been finalized. We're hemorrhaging office staff. I'm traveling way more than I should be, and a couple higher-ups have recently and separately been accused of regularly drinking on the job. Story 57. My office is shared between me and D. For the 10th time today, D just ripped a really ripe fart. The kind that makes you sure it wasn't just a fart, it's a true ghost poo situation. D won't apologize and has zero remorse. D is my dog. Story 58. Two of my coworkers are constantly at each other's throats. One is a shift lead and an alcoholic who's in AA and keeps relapsing. The other is very high maintenance, or in the lead's words, OCD. The lead always tries to deflect blame while the other night picks everything, so there's always conflict between them. I often feel like I end up getting caught in the middle. Also, we're severely understaffed, so I'm doing the work of two people while being paid for the work of one person. Thankfully, my last day is next week before I start a higher paying job. Story 59. Oh, El Mayo, it's actually about me, but word gets around fast. I work in a huge storage facility. I am female, and our workers are, I would say, 50-50 women and men. We do also have externals from other companies, though. One of those externals kind of harassed me verbally, trying to ask me out and not taking no for an answer. I just went straight to my superiors because I don't take bullcrap like that. Dude is probably getting fired from his company. I don't feel guilty, especially after asking other female workers and hearing that it wasn't the first time he harassed someone. Story 60. I'm currently both a senior and college student teaching and work at a restaurant. This is related to my college class. One of my friends who is also student teaching, we finished up recently, mentioned how the teacher they were working with bribed students with candy. And she said candy was much more effective on boys than girls as a bribe. And there was a lot of arguing as to whether or not that was true. One of my classmates suggested we have psychology professor research it. This was middle school, and obviously kids at that age love candy regardless. I mean, adults love candy. What was the biggest scandal in your workplace? Worked for a very successful fintech a few years back, and 3 incidents stick out to me. One woman who was an absolute wagon and nasty bully. Working there and married to a doctor outside of the place was sleeping with multiple male colleagues. This may or may not include on the premises itself. Accidentally walked in on her in a recent transfer when working late, and it was horrendous trying to work alongside her for a few more months before I finally left. Last I heard, she's still married to the doctor man, and they have a number of kids now, too. A very, very high-up male staff member, who I believe rented out a nice gaff to the wagon in Story 1, actually, was sleeping with a ton of newish hires across multiple different offices. Afaik, his wife was kind of aware of him being a flirt, but I doubt knew the extent of his workplace shenanigans. The husband is absolutely minted now, and I think the wife was a sham, so not sure how secure she'd feel leaving him if she ever came to know everything. His harem were utterly oblivious of one another's existences as his mistresses, and each, although aware he was married, appeared to assume they were his real soulmate. 3. At an Xmas function at one of our huge offices in another continent, a pretty well-respected lad who worked there in the Irish office for years and was considered an absolute genius by the owners, aggressively tried it on with a colleague who explained clearly she wasn't interested. He was drunk and horny and having none of it, and continued to paw at her. At a fairly public section of the hotel, a load of us were staying in. His response to her rejection was to get violent, and he only stopped when another employee, tall rugby lad who was a total sweetheart, walked over to him and stopped him. The initial outcome by HR was to attempt to wash it all away. But after a number of witnesses came forward, they've passably had to carry out an investigation. Crap bag lad got to resign of his own accord rather than be let go, allowed to keep his shares despite not hitting the minimum employment period for them. Got a golden handshake and a ridiculously favorable reference letter that let him walk straight into another crazily well-paid senior job. The female victim eventually got moved to another office in a different continent, but I'm chuffed to say she's absolutely thriving now and has a few side gigs in conjunction with her regular employment and is on crazy good money and is hugely respected by everyone who worked with her in the Irish office prior to her move. Story 2. Worked in my local pub, duty manager, and discovered the bar manager was stealing money from the till safe to fund his gambling habit. The guy was a friend of mine, and I honestly felt sorry for him, but to cover my back, I printed out all the proof from the till system and also downloaded all the CCTV evidence to support it, and then approached him and told him I found out and that he had a couple of days to pay it back, or I would go to the owner. In hindsight, I should have called the owner on the spot, but I was young and naive. That same night, he wiped the till computer history of 6 months of data, as well as deleting all the footage for the last 30 days from the CCTV system. He then jumped in his car and got on a ferry to Scotland. The owner brought in a forensic accountant who discovered more than £8,000 had been stolen. The police then became involved, and boy, were they happy to see the evidence that I produced. The police eventually tracked the guy down and he was given a summons. I gave evidence against him in court, not once but twice, as I had also helped install the CCTV system, so I was called as an expert witness to explain how he could delete the footage to cover his tracks. The now ex-bar manager was given a suspended sentence and ordered to pay back £4,000, all they could prove he stole. I eventually became bar manager, but I only stayed for another year as the late nights were becoming too much. Fast forward 10 years and he moved in next door to me. I nearly dropped when I saw him in the removal van. We never spoke, didn't even acknowledge each other's presence for the 4 months he was there. It then all came to a head when his then-girlfriend discovered he was stealing from her to fund his by now totally out-of-control gambling addiction. They had a massive fight and the police were called. I watched him being carted off at 2 a.m. and the arsehole winked at me as he got put in the back of the car. He got time for that one, and I never saw him again. Story 3. Pre-COVID, all staff would get personal stuff delivered to work. It was great. You'd get your stuff from Amazon or eBay or whatever right to your desk. You wouldn't have to worry about it getting robbed from your doorstep while you were away at work. But then some go-BC ordered a flat-packed garden shed delivered to his desk. The postroom staff crap a brick and ended up banning all personal deliveries to work from then on. Scandal. We never got told which Gibbs site ordered that they'd have been lynched. Story 4. A guy was fired. Management allowed a rumor to spread that he was taking substances at work. Everyone believed this rumor, so the poor guy got no support. As it turns out, he was actually encouraging the workforce to unionize. Story 5. I only worked weekends, but on one of my days off, I popped into work, small retail shop owned by a very popular company, to say hi to everyone. But the vibes were off. You could cut the tension with a knife, our security guard told me. That a man in a suit showed up telling the key holders that they were being investigated for some money that went missing. They had to get their things and go home after their meeting. There was only 2 key holders at the time, and between the 2, we all knew who it was, the boss. She had a small drinking problem. She would ring me late at night drunk crying. She was going through a divorce, and she would always take a long time putting the bagged money into the safe. No one else was ever in the room. Anyway, a few weeks went by and they weren't allowed in to work. The other girl got a lawyer while the boss became a wreck. The company has to get other managers from other shops across the country to open, close, and cash out the shop. Eventually, the company closed us during COVID, but before the investigation was done, the boss quit. There was no legal repercussions, and because she quit, I think they mostly dropped the issue. There was cameras in the office where the safe was, but the quality was so bad, only people who had access to the safe were the key holders. We found out when other managers came in to run the shop that there was a lot of things she was doing that wasn't supposed to be done. Oh, and it was $1,500 that was taken in change. Story 6. I worked in a homeless hostel a long time ago. On a night shift, 3 of the staff decided to do hash yogurts. Unfortunately, another homeless hostel caught fire that night, and they rang around different hostels looking for emergency spaces to put residents for the night. Obviously, when they rang this hostel, they were greeted with uncontrollable giggling and general incoherence. An investigation was launched. 2 of the 3 admitted it and were sacked. One of those has gone on to have a successful career in the housing department of a county council. The 3rd lad never admitted it. Nothing was done. A good few years later, the 3rd lad was on a weekend shift on a bank holiday weekend. He never did a room check, supposed to be done every few hours, the whole weekend. Tuesday staff come in, do a room check. There's a dead fella in one of the rooms. Dead a few days. The 3rd lad finally got sacked. Story 7. In the 90s, I worked part-time in a newly opened supermarket while I was in college. All of the part-timers covered the weekend shifts Saturday and Sunday and were all of a similar age, 17, 18, 19. You could be stacking shelves and then put on tills when it got busy. You'd rarely be in tills all day, so you'd log on and off the till, but it was just the one cash drawer for the day, with a manager emptying out to the cash office at certain intervals. Cash was still king then. Anyway, there was one particular girl who was our age but used to be telling us, "Oh, wasn't in last week. I was at such and such a hotel with my boyfriend." A memorable one was they were just back from a weekend in Paris. Unheard of then to be popping off to Paris or anywhere like it for a weekend. I used to just think her boyfriend was older and working full-time. How nice that he was bringing her on these trips. It turned out that she was slipping cash from the till into her bra or wherever, no pockets in our uniforms, and helping herself to hundreds of euro. They knew someone was robbing, but it took them a while to narrow it down with the amount of people logging on and off the tills. We were all young, naive, and scandalized. She obviously was marched out and lost her job. I don't know if she was charged or not. Story 8. We had a security guard who everybody loved. Customers and staff. He lived in a different town, so nobody knew much about him. We thought he had gone on holiday as we hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. And as the weeks turned to months, we thought he was sick or maybe dead. About 6 months later, our other security guard showed me a Sunday World article saying he had been convicted. He'll probably die in jail, given his age. Story 9. One of the ladies who used to work with us didn't show up to work one day. No notice, no text, nothing. We tried everything to get in contact with her, but nothing worked. She ended up completely disappearing for around 2 weeks, and nobody could get a hold of her. We did a welfare check on her, and the guards said she was okay, but they can't elaborate on anything other than the fact she was alive and well. HR managed to finally get in touch with her and asked her to come in for a meeting. She wasn't fired immediately because she was with the company for almost 4 years, so they gave her a bit of leeway. Unfortunately, her contract did get terminated because she failed to show up for 4 meetings and didn't explain why. A friend of mine lived in the same apartment block as her, and he basically explained her and her husband were raging alcoholic and would go on massive benders all the time. She'd come into work stinking of drink, and she was doing coke as well. The sad part of all of this was the fact she had a 7-month-old baby at home, and the child was majorly neglected. Found out recently, the child actually got taken off them, and they got booted out of the apartment and moved to Germany to live with her sister. Story 10. This is about 15 years ago, working as a contract maintenance engineer. Had a 6-month stint in a chocolate confectionery maker just over the road from the square in Tallout. The guy I took over from had just passed away. Out of curiosity, I asked if he had been working there. Long, respectful question as they spoke fondly of him. Apparently, he would come into work in a daze and just go missing. He would be found out in the yard, just wandering around. No idea how he got there, long story short. Management accused him of drinking or doing substances on the job, leave with no pay, and no offer of help. Poor chap had a brain tumor, knew nothing until a week or so before he passed away. Spent his last few months in the height of depression. His fellow workmates tried to fight his corner, but nope. Corporate boys didn't give a duck. Story 11. In my last job, I started before current. I was starting on a Monday and got a lift to the office from the HR manager who lived near me, and she said I was taking over a different branch than planned. They'd sacked the manager there while I was on why notice period with previous company. Turned out he had been there 12 years, top performer, but he had spent the last year scamming them and their far too loose stock system by doing normal cash sales, and then the following day doing a returns credit for cash and pocketing it. But they weren't noticing it because he was doing the stock checks and counting the phantom. He also compounded that by charging a lot of them to a very lax, busy trade customer who just kept paying the bills. He only got caught because he expanded his stealing to a couple of cash drop bags. He took them for over 100K when they added in the refund to the customer. Gambling is a hell of a substance. Story 12. Wasn't work, but I did a fast course once years ago. The tutor and 2 students were involved in some kind of love triangle, all 60-off-year-olds. I suspected something when the tutor seemed to be ignoring students in favor of one of a particular man, but didn't know just how far it had gone. One day, there was just wild tension in the classroom, and the third actor suddenly exploded with rage, threw the keyboard across the room, and stormed out, Never saw her or the tutor again after that, but you could tell the all fella at the center of it all thought he was the dog's bollocks. Story 13. But work with someone who literally bugged the office meeting manager's office, has had physical altercations with other members of staff, inappropriate behavior towards female members of staff, used his work phone to send inappropriate content, and has showed up to work steaming drunk. He still works here, but is on health leave. I think they are snookered firing him because he has alcohol problems, and they don't want to be sued for firing someone with health issues. He is the type of idiot that would bleed every cent out of the company if he can. Nobody likes him here. Like, there's about 20 of us in the building, and we all actively avoid him if he has to come into the office for anything. There's a screw loose, and although I feel physically safe, I wouldn't feel safe discussing anything with him because he twists people's words to suit his agendas. He's an absolute narcissist and should have been fired donkeys ago. Story 14. I was working for the company which handles media for big studios. They had clients like Netflix, CBS, Paramount, and several others. Perks of the job were we could watch unreleased movies like a year before release sometimes. Even could watch Game of Thrones before it was released. Everyone used to do it, and it was like an open secret. Until one day, a bunch of idiots decided to share an unreleased God episode on Google Drive, and not even a private link. It was from season 4, and it was traced back to them after an investigation. It was all over the news about the leak, and police came into the office for questioning. Ever since that event, security was beefed up to the limits and needed approvals for anything which even remotely deals unreleased media. It was a good experience, though. Story 15 had a fairly low-level job in a well-known international bank in Dublin. A young enough guy about the same level as me was knocking boots with a senior female manager. Another more senior male manager again was jealous. Christmas party rolls on. The senior male manager's picking on my buddy. Another buddy tells him to leave our friend alone. A fist fight ensues, and they have to be pulled apart. Roll on the Christmas party the following year, and the round 2 between the two lads begins with them fighting. They're just fighting about fighting now. Nothing was ever raised with HR the old sessions in the recession. Great feckin' parties all the same. Story 16. I don't work there, but about 5 years ago, I bought a load of white goods for the house in Harvey Norman, Drogheda. Sold by a slick older salesman, the whole works. Washing machine, fridge freezer, tumble dryer, freezer, dishwasher. The fridge never turned up in the delivery. Rang up, and long story short, the old lad salesman had been refunding items and pocketing the cash. Harvey Norman sorted it out and sent me out a better fridge. From what I gathered talking to the manager, he had done quite a bit of this and was already caught and fired. Assume further action also. Story 17. Finance director. In an old job, wouldn't give someone time off for chemo treatments. An old ops manager in the same place was caught riding a bird at the Christmas party. To save his marriage, this paragon of virtue accused her of abuse him. She got the sack for it. Manager of a different office in the place got caught having an affair. Her husband worked in the same office and the lad was in his team. Last job was a contractor in a big company. About 3 weeks after he let a load of us go, our account manager got dragged out of the client's offices by security. Story 18. A site manager at a contracting company I worked for was actually employed by a competitor. His entire goal was for our crews to do as much work as possible without accomplishing any billable goals or completing project phases. The idea was that our company would get thrown off the long-term and lucrative project, and the competitor would come in and do a little work for a lot of money. I had rage quit one afternoon after he took away my company truck and told me to use a bicycle to get around to the various locations, miles and miles apart. I know, it sounds utterly mad, delusional. The receptionist told me the whole story a couple of years later. Story 19. Worked in a large warehouse for a large company who might be named after a large wooded area in South America. It wasn't the thefts that were scandalous. 10K plus of PS4 game, discs only, so easily smuggled out. New iPhone taped to bottom of large bins by a girl who worked in high-value debt and whose BF worked the bin. It was the fact most never even went to court. No bad PR required. It was said. Story 20. Chap I worked with for years in a pretty good job didn't show up to work one September, and I met his replacement a few weeks later and asked what happened to him. The new guy knew nothing. Scrolling online news articles a few weeks later, and I see a picture of the chap. Turns out he was scamming the social for almost a decade. Put himself through college, got a nice swanky gag on the docks, and had a lavish wedding from it. I, and everyone else at work, knew him by his alias. He used his real name to pull off the scam. There's more to it, but cannot divulge here. Story 21. Worked in a public service facility. One lad was stealing equipment and selling it on eBay. He used the internal shipping department to send the items. It eventually caught up with him, if I recall, because the equipment had asset stickers that he included in a picture in a listing. They realized the extent of the theft by the amount he had shipped. Story 22. A guy was returning goods that weren't actually sold and refunding them to one of his credit law debit cards. The company only discovered it after a number of years. They were able to identify over $100K that was stolen. The accountant was useless and may have also been crooked himself as he left soon after. The stock taking was never fully completed, and as the company were using the products themselves, the sales reps used to travel around with carloads of stuff, and samples were often given out so it would never add up. Story 23. New starter joined a team building night at the pub event in their first week. Turned out they were a recovering alcoholic, drank too much, went missing, and was found dead that night after falling. Story 24. A girl in the finance department of my company had been requested to transfer money to another one of our office's bank accounts abroad. She prepared the transfer and had the finance director and compliance director sign off on the bank transfer to release the funds. Turned out it was an unfortunate scam. She was let go, but the two fat directors remained in their cushy positions. Story 25. We have had disgruntled employees sending out scathing emails on their last day disclosing secret affairs, bad management, etc. Someone disappeared one day, and it turned out he was going to prison for the worst possible thing you can imagine. People drinking on the job, caught shagging in the job, caught sleeping under their desk on the job, robbing toilet roll and shower curtains from the gym. I am in my job way too bloody long, because I have so many more, but some are a million times worse than what I wrote here. Story 26. This lad started working on the factory floor. Wasn't particularly the best worker. Always went on smoke breaks and didn't take the job seriously. He was gone. After about 6 months, a few weeks later, he was reported on the news for keeping €250,000 worth of substances in his apartment and tried to pinch his girlfriend on it. Story 27. My colleague's laptop went in for maintenance, and they discovered a huge cache of adult film. It was all sorted into folders for different types. It was so well organized. He was given a final warning. Then one day the police turned up to seize his laptop as he was caught in a shopping mall on his lunch break, standing under escalators looking up women's skirts. As you can imagine, he was fired. Story 28. You know when someone comes back from holiday and brings in bags of sweets to share? I caught one Iowa lad grab a full bag of sweets and put them in his desk drawer. I printed off a page saying, "You miserable. I saw you robbing all the sweets, put them back or I'll tell everyone," and left it on his desk. It was hilarious watching him try put them back without anyone noticed. Story 29. Friend of mine worked for an accountancy firm doing the audit of Mars. Last day of the audit, went on site with a picnic freezer box, emptied the contents of the ice cream freezer in the staff canteen into his freezer box and brought them home. Email went around the audit department afterwards, notifying the audit teams that they were no longer to avail of client handouts because of someone's excessive use, which had pissed off the client, Mars. Story 30. The absolute fool who resigned, claiming he was going to start a coffee shop, then tried to steal a good chunk of the company's business. One man in his shed versus a $30 million company. I think he went bankrupt. Story 31. Fella sat on photocopier at office Christmas party with his togs down to photocopy his ass. The weight of him shattered the glass he is sitting on. Fella passes out with pain and carted away in ambulance. No more Christmas parties in the office. Story 32. Not my workplace, but soon after I left school, one female teacher was found to be having an affair with another's husband. They all lived in the same small town I went to school in. He left his wife for the other teacher, and the poor woman left in the lurch. Moved away. They live in her house now. But anyway, rural workplace drama story 33 had the national sales manager of a large international company called a team-wide meeting where she told certain people what she thought of them. The company then said, she's got with the main competitor, and if anyone wants to join her bar, the people she named, they're more than welcome, and left the call and her job. Utter scandal. Story 34. The Tyler and her Geo were regularly shagging in the pump room. Imagine our shock when me, at the time an apprentice, and my tradesman opened the door and caught them in the act. Also on the same site, a crane driver disappeared one day. Was in the paper a few weeks later after winning the Lotto. Story 35. Used to work in a warehouse for a fairly big delivery company. I worked the night shift. Came in one evening for my shift and a few Garda cars with the flashing lights sitting at the entrance. Turns out a few lads on the day shift had been stealing Dell laptops. Had been going on for a year or two before they were caught. Story 36. Worked for a large pharmaceutical. Won't name names, but you all know it. 3 lads were caught do substances in the bathroom on night shift. One lad took the hit and got sacked. The other 2 got warning. Guess that night shift desperation to stay awake kicked in. Story 37. Murder. A temp employee was hired for a company and went on some dates with a coworker. He was a bit obsessive and her coworkers told her to stay away from him, so she did. The temp created a fake Facebook profile and messaged her. They agreed to meet up in a hotel. When she arrived to the hotel room, he beat her. Story 38. Worked in a phone shop. One of the lads stole $80K worth of phones by signing up fake contracts. This is pre-iPhone, so Nokias, etc. Over 200 handsets before they copped it. What is the craziest office scandal that happened at your job? Story 1. The owner's daughter was also the vice president of the company, and she was literally sleeping with any man that would allow her to within the different departments at the company. She tried to sleep with me several times, even locking the door and sitting on her desk in front of me. Had just gotten married, so I was pretty off-put by this, not to mention I wasn't attracted to her at all. She was also married at this time with 2 small children. Another guy who worked in sales was approached in a similar way I was, except he was gay but had not come out yet. Times were different back then. He immediately went to the owner and explained what happened, and because he had gotten word that the same might have happened to me, he asked the owner to discuss it with me as well. I get called into his office, and he's sitting there with our IT guy who had been monitoring emails she had sent out to me and several others, which were quite inappropriate for work emails. He shows me several, and I said, "Yeah, but I never acted on any of these requests." And then he goes, "Has she done anything to make you feel uncomfortable since you've been working here?" And I confessed about the situation in the office and several other situations where she would say things that were not okay and were purely harassment. The next day, I see her packing her office up and sobbing. I didn't say anything to her, just went about my business as if I didn't see anything at all. She was fired that day, and I think a huge relief fell over the entire office. 2 years pass. I have moved up in the company, and the owner's wanting to retire. He appoints one of the lead salespeople as the interim president of the company. As she had been with the company for over 20 years, was always the top salesperson, had the best relationships with the clients, and overall knew the business better than maybe even he did. To me, it was probably the most appropriate promotion anyone could get, until we found out that she was having a lesbian affair with the owner's daughter, and had been for years, even prior to her firing. They were also putting together a plan for her to be promoted so that she could rehire the daughter after he retired from the company, and they would kind of hide her within the ranks and get her paid without anyone noticing, really. And it worked. For another years, his daughter, who had been fired before for all that harassment stuff, was back working at the company, mostly remotely. And then after a year, she was reestablished into her old role as vice president. We desperately explained the situation to the now president of the company, but she didn't care at all. It was their plan after all to get this all past her father and get her back on the payroll. And what does she do as soon as she resumes her role as VP? She fires me, the salesperson who outed her in the first place, and half the other people who worked in both departments. There was no warning. There was no explanation, nothing. We received severance and had to sign NDAs to receive such, otherwise we got nothing. I'm not sure how legal those NDAs were, but I made sure to anonymously get in touch with the retired owner to tell him what happened. He was pissed, but nothing came of it in terms of me or my employment. I took the severance, which at the time was very good for my age, and I left after working there for 5 years. My understanding is that following that rash of firing, in the attempt to transition the company from hard copy to digital format, it was a publication company, they ended up losing their footing. A rival company basically took over most of their major clients, and the company went bankrupt within 2 years of all of that happening. I had a friend who was still a clerk there, and she said before she resigned, they weren't even able to properly do payroll and would just give generic paychecks to people paid out of the company's emergency fund. She noticed that her health insurance had been canceled and they were not paying taxes properly for the employees, so she left. I looked them both up on Facebook one day just to see what came of either of them, and could only find the daughter's profile, where it showed her being single and working at some kind of fire system sales company. Never looked any further than that. She looked very aged and unhappy from her picture, which was enough for me to say good riddance. Story 2. Back in the 80s, I worked for a cable TV company. New industry, filled with lots of young people. Our office was in what used to be the old courthouse of the city our franchise was located, and they were still doing renovations to the building, and the contractor would buy us lunch or open the bar at the place we had our staff meetings held on Fridays after work. I had my own set of keys and would come in on Saturdays and get the workload ready as the dispatcher for any weekend work and answer customer service calls. I would have to use the back entrance, parking in the lot of the new courthouse next door. It was a Saturday and early, before 7 a.m. I'm hungover from the staff meeting the night before, and the sales staff room had soft drinks in the fridge in their area. I push open the double doors to the sales room, and I see the contractor. Dude is in his 50s, pants and underwear down to his ankles, sitting atop his rundown cowboy boots he always wore. Back to me, pale ass pumping away. And on the table is my manager, Diane, legs spread in the air, propped on each shoulder, while laying atop the conference table, getting rammed balls deep by the contractor dude. He turns around and just grins at me as I back out of the room. Just as the doors swing shut, I hear some lady banging on the front entrance lobby doors, which is adjacent to the sales room, separated by the reception counter. I poke my head through the door that leads from the hallway to the lobby, and an older lady is yelling and screaming and banging on the door. Where is Richard? Or contractor dude's name. I know he is in there, Open this ducking door. His car's in the parking lot. Open this door. I kind of tell her we are not open yet. I can't open the door. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Richard come bounding out of the sales room, hiking up his jeans. The reception counter blocks the view of the sales door and hallway so the lady can't see him. Richard finishes peeling up his pants, flashes me a wink, and runs down the hall and out the back exit to the parking lot. While being next to the new courthouse, there are usually lots of police around, even on weekend. Next thing I see are cops pulling up outside, wondering why some lady is pounding hysterically on the door of a closed business. I just go back to my dispatch office and start working. Not too long after that, Diane nonchalantly walks by the office and out the back door, not saying a word, and leaves. A few minutes after that, the cops come around to the back exit. I know them because upstairs they still use that part of the old courthouse, and I tell them what happened. Monday comes around, and we have a new contractor finishing the work. Diane is gone, and one of our technicians also quits. He was Diane's current boyfriend. I got promoted into Diane's position. Yes, the lady banging on the door was contractor dude's wife. Story 3. I was a manager at a retail chain store. Our district manager, Jill, was married to a store manager, Bob. They had been dating since they were both regular employees at different stores, so it wasn't exactly an issue when they were both assistant managers and got married. Even when she became DM, it was okay. She was the tough but fair type, and he, not wanting to put her in a weird spot, was a perfectly by-the-book manager. But Jill was also what I like to call a reformed party girl, and this showed in her choice of the managers she hired to fill openings. She had 20 stores or so, and 10 of them had managers who were around her age and came up either before her or with her, like her husband, and the other 10 she filled with people like I was at the time. Young, attractive, liked to party. Between the new generation managers, we were all flirting and hooking up all the time. They set it up so we spent lots of time together on retreats and such, and we all took full advantage of it, and Jill was well aware. On one such retreat, she tagged along, got a bit too drunk, and ended up back in the hotel room of one of the guys I'll call Steve. Steve was sharing a room with another one of the guys. That guy walked in on Steve and Jill banging and decided, what the hell, and joined in on the action. For the next few months, we had an odd amount of new generation manager retreats until eventually Jill decided she just wanted to be with Steve. This pissed off their former threesome mate, and he went to Jill's husband Bob and spilled the beans. It was absolute chaos. We were all interviewed, made to write statements, asked to disclose who we had been with, asked how much we knew. We were not allowed to work while this went on, so they paid half the district's most expensive employees to sit at home for 2 weeks while our assistant managers filled in. Eventually, they found no wrongdoing. Jill kept her job, Steve kept his job, Bob kept his job. The former threesome partner requested a transfer out of district, and it was granted. The policies were updated, the work trips stopped altogether. After that 2-week period, it was like nothing ever happened for a while. Bob tried to forgive Jill, they had kids, but eventually they divorced. He still, to this day, works under her. Steve quit a few years later and married Jill. Their former partner stood in their wedding. I haven't worked there in over a decade's time, but I heard from another manager who still does that all the old managers are starting to retire, and Jill has replaced each one of them with attractive, fresh out of college guys. And the work retreats have started up again. Story 4. The biggest one is complicated and involves too many people, so I'll give you the second biggest one. We had this tech named Helen, who shortly after she got hired became friends with one of our dispatchers, John, who has been married for like 15 years. John and Helen often had breakfast and lunch together. Helen kind of hated her husband. Dude was a legit pause. And her friendship with John quickly turned to more. For months, he started going on break for about half an hour or more, or even just going home early right after she would clock out. Everyone knew what is happening. Somehow, her husband found out. He called our business line and told whoever he spoke to that he was coming for John and was going to beat him. We had a police presence around our complex, and my boss went and got his handgun out of his car, and a mass text was sent out to everyone warning the drivers to call the lab and make sure it was safe, and if they weren't able to reach anyone, then stay away until told otherwise. Nothing ended up happening except for Helen putting in her 2 weeks. However, John still takes his breaks to go meet up with Helen to bone in one of their car before she goes into work, despite the threat. Story 5. I worked for a company that had 5 partners, 2 major, 3 minor, all in their early 30s. One of the minor partners was a sad, broken alcoholic. Apparently, this guy drank a lot at home, but when he went on the road, he'd get absolutely crap-faced every night. For some reason, they put him in charge of sales. There was a meeting with the company's biggest client, who represented maybe 7% of company revenue. It was in New York, and of course, the partner goes out and gets wasted the night before. The next day, he shows up for the meeting, and he's literally green, like green skin tone. Apparently, he really outdid himself the night before. During the meeting, he's getting greener and greener, his eyes are half closed, he's sweating, and right in front of the buyer. The buyer's boss, another partner, and the account manager He leans over and hurls into a ficus plant. This client was a Fortune 500 company. So of course, they sent him to the company infirmary and they had to move to another meeting room because of the smell. That could be the second biggest scandal though, because another one of the partners, a former male stripper, was sleeping with one of his subordinates. Nobody understood how the guy could be a stripper because he was kind of stocky, fat, and had this weird white spot in his hair just above the hairline. Anyway, they'd go on trips and other employees would see her coming out of his hotel room. Everyone in the company knew and both were married. It was very awkward when her husband would swing by to pick her up for lunch. She got pregnant and left the company a few months later. My buddy, who had this very thick South Georgia state not country accent, said, "I bet you that baby comes out with a white spot on its head." That company was out of control on so many other levels, but those are the two biggest things. Story 6. Day 1 at my new job. I was starting as a programmer. I'd been recruited through an agency along with one other guy. The other guy had started a week before me. So day 1, the first half of the day was a quick orientation. After that, I took lunch. Came back and was told to wait for someone to take me up to my desk and introduce me to the rest of the crew, including the other new guy that was hired. Some guy came down to get me and led me up to my desk. As we're approaching my desk, he points to the desk across the aisle from me and says, "And this is where the other new guys sit." Oh, we look at the other new guy's desk, and his chair is sideways on the floor. His keyboard is dangling. There's a spilled Starbucks drink all over the floor. Just a total mess. Turns out this guy, who was in his 50s, was suffering from severe alcoholism. He came into work already drunk and continued to drink at his desk. He got so ducked up he fell out of his rolling office chair and knocked everything over. Another coworker had to basically carry him downstairs to get him some help and clean him up. He was obviously fired on the spot. And his mom, again, this dude is in his 50s, so his mom, at least 70, had to come pick him up from work. Needless to say, I never even saw him, much less met him. But I think about him from time to time and hope he's doing better. Alcoholism runs in my family, and I've even had my bouts with it. It is a nasty ducking disease that ruins lives. Hope he's okay. Story 7. Manager Kim. Very pretty, but got the job because her location was closed down. One of our new hires took a liking to her. They were roughly the same age, so they hit it off, and he was a big flirt. Eventually, the telltale signs of special treatment appeared, and we all knew that new hire, Jim, was sleeping with her. She also had a daughter, absolutely gorgeous. Jim has a son, Jimmy, who worked there too. Jimmy actually had more seniority than Dad, and we knew Jimmy was sleeping with a supervisor, Amy. Amy was married, and Jim tried to explain the infidelity as Amy was abused in her marriage. But some of us would go on trips together, and there were never any clues to that. Not to say that isn't happening, but also these stories are 10 years old, and Amy and her husband are still together. Eventually, Amy and Jimmy break it off, and Jimmy starts seeing the manager Kim's daughter. In the meantime, Kim and Jim are having issues. She starts flirting with another subordinate at the time. Jim finds out, there's a fight, and he quits. But as part of the special treatment, some responsibilities were solely his job, and nobody else was legally trained or signed off to pick up the slack, which led it to a show right away. A week later, Kim was terminated. Jimmy and the daughter are married and have a child, making both Kim and Jim grandparents that have to get along because of that. But otherwise, they probably wouldn't even see each other. Story 8. I have a few good ones. CEO of one company had secretly hired 5 different mistresses on payroll that were doing no work. He also raised his own salary without proper approval of board shareholders while the company was losing money. Forensic accounting uncovered that he used company credit card on blow and escorts. Different company had all of the following happen. CEO bought a personal boat under company name and signed favorable agreements with a different company he had beneficial ownership in. He proceeded to secretly devote company resources, labor, to do work for the other company. The controller had set up a fairly cunning kickback scheme with one of the vendors. When the vendor figured out what she was doing, they called us, and we fired her. Another C-suite member hired a mistress as head of sales at exorbitant salary, despite her not doing almost any work. Not a company I worked with, but the owner's brother who worked there was arrested for inappropriate pictures of minors on work computer. The owner's best friend and head of operations wife went missing, and basically all evidence points to the husband. We had interviewed a CEO candidate who we thought was great and would have been our first choice of the ones we interviewed. We had a connection at one of the companies listed on his resume, so we called them. Turns out the entire resume was falsified. He had never worked at any of the companies. Story 9. A guy started working at my place who was a bit of a wide boy, was your best friend to your face and talked crap about you to everyone else. Wore waistcoats and drove a left-hand drive Mustang. We're in the UK. Was here for a year or so, then got another job at a place his wife worked at. Wrote his resignation letter slating the company and everyone that worked at it. He showed it to his line manager before he submitted it and was advised against it, but he responded with, Wild horses wouldn't bring me back here, so in it went with 4 weeks' notice. During that 4 weeks, his wife found out that he was cheating on her with her best friend. She kicked him out and trashed his precious car, so the police got involved. It was very messy to the point that his new job rescinded the offer, and he came crawling back to ask if he could withdraw his resignation. But with the amount of crap he'd put in the letter, he was told that there is no way he was coming back to work with us. Well and truly burned every single bridge he could find. Story 10. A job I took moving cross-country was chock full of crazy shenanigans. A few that happened my first 6 months. PM was fudging his expense reports, staying extra days in locations on his own, but billing them as paid for by the company, or extending his rental car while home so he doesn't have to drive his own. He got fired for failing to support me when we were down a dispatcher, but that report led to these findings. An account manager, which was my position just in a different city, was using the corporate credit card to bribe contractors to take jobs. She'd pay for their groceries, gas, etc. to make sure jobs got completed. We got our corporate credit cards taken away after that. A number of lawsuits that varied from harassment to ill treatment of contractors, as well as wage theft, caused the company to file for bankruptcy. Emo karma came for them because it was a bunch of arrogant a-holes who thought their crap didn't stink and treated everyone else accordingly. Another good one was while I was working retail, I walked in on the acid. Manager due BJ, the store manager. No one got fired, but the AIM was mad wouldn't break up with his gaff for her and planned to say he harassed her. I let him know it was coming and she ended up fired then. Story 11. Off-site event. Hot female sales rep got a little too drunk and went to sleep, passed out, in the rental shuttle. Sales manager, married 15 years and 2 kids, sneaks into the van and proceeds to molest her. She wakes up to manager with hands and fingers in places they shouldn't be, screams and fights him off. Parking lot cameras confirm situation as it developed. Instant termination. Female sales rep sues and wins. This was a well-known HR benefits company. Story 12. Our C-suite offices had full frosted windows from the floor to the ceiling, so you couldn't see in at all unless the door was open. But they weren't very soundproof. We had a married couple that were both devs. Everything seemed fine and no boundaries were crossed in terms of PDA. The husband was out to lunch and the wife went into the office room. After a while, the rest of the staff heard the sounds of spaghetti being stirred and daddy issues being made. By instinct, everyone assumed it was the husband in there until he walked back in from lunch. The room fell silent. Silent. The husband charged in and all hell broke out with our CTO and the husband beating the crap out of each other and the wife running out looking exactly how you'd expect. Messed up hair, clothes all ducked up and messed up makeup. The next day, the frosted windows were changed so you could always see people's feet and legs. Story 13. During the annual company picnic, one of our notoriously tight-lipped accounting folks, let's call her Jane, apparently decided it was time to really let her hair down. After a few too many glasses of wine, she found herself atop the karaoke stage, belting out tunes like a contestant on a talent show. But the real kicker? Jane wasn't just singing. She was revealing office secrets between songs. Everything from the truth behind mysteriously disappearing stationery to who really broke the microwave in the break room. The crowd was in stitches, and cell phone videos of her performance went viral within the office. By Monday, the videos had somehow reached the higher-ups. They weren't too thrilled about the breach of office etiquette and confidentiality. Management called an emergency meeting, but instead of the expected reprimand, they announced a formal karaoke contest as a new annual team-building event, thanks to Jane's unexpected display of spirit and surprisingly entertaining accusations. Jane still works in accounting, but now she also heads the party planning committee, and the microwave has never been cleaner. Story 14. I worked at a major telecom company, and our regional president was fired after he got drunk at an off-site meeting and made a pass at our female CFO, who was admittedly very hot. He did this in front of a hotel with several subordinates watching. When she awkwardly but politely told him no, he berated her because apparently she slept with several higher-ups and he thought she was passing on him because he was short. He was flown out on a private jet 2 hours later, and we never saw him again. Story 15. A middle manager at my place was blackmailing the maintenance company to do unpaid work on his house, thousands of pounds worth, sending the maintenance company almost into bankruptcy. I don't know what he was blackmailing him with, but the boss of the maintenance company once said to me, "Look at this," and showed me adult film, so he wasn't exactly a stand-up guy. There was probably quite a bit to blackmail him over. I wasn't even friends with him. I have no idea why he chose this as a conversation starter, but the manager didn't even get sacked for that. He got sacked for taking bribes to leak confidential information. Few years later, he went to jail for massively defrauding his own mother. He was the dictionary definition of untrustworthy. Story 16. Not at work, but when I was in HR a while ago, we would record a daily news thing for the following morning to update the school on events, accomplishments, etc. Two teachers decided to have sex in front of the camera and accidentally had it on and overwrote our morning video, and the whole school saw it, for a good 15 Z's, at least. Needless to say, both got fired, story 17. I was working as a government contractor a couple years ago. We do shift work and work in teams of 3 every day as a full-motion video analyst. One day, our branch chief got a call from his boss, and the man had a list of people that needed to come to his office immediately. Turns out, the people on the list were participating in a private chat room at work, talking trash about their coworkers, as well as inappropriate comments about some of their female coworkers. Needless to say, they were escorted out of the building, and we had to draw from other teams in order to get back to full manpower. Watch what you say in work chat room. They are monitored and archived. Story 18. On a team trip, a coworker attacked me and kissed me. I pushed her away and got away, went to our manager and told her what happened. She, manager, said I needed to be careful because pushing this too hard would be a career-limiting move. She said she'd deal with it. After a couple weeks of having to work with her every day, I went to HR and said, if I did this to her, I'd have been fired the next morning. HR lady said, yep, it took months to get rid of the woman who attacked me, all while I was kind of waiting to get fired to make it all go away. Story 19. Managers created a list of employees and ranked them all by performance, likability, and salary, and tallied up how much money they cost the company each year. They left this list in the boardroom and everyone saw it. First, they said it was fake, but it had their signatures. Then they said it was just there so they could figure out where to improve. One day, shortly after all this, they finally gave up trying to cover it up and just started firing people who they deemed to have cost the company money. All of the managers kept their jobs and got bonuses. Story 20. We worked for a drilling contractor and hired smaller companies to do the work for us. Subcontractors. Boss was getting money under the table from subcontractors we hired. He'd get up to 10% back from these $20,000, $500,000 invoices we'd pay to subcontractors. Boss created a fake company to skim leftover money in our job budgets. Say we saved a little bit of money in materials, he would pay his fake company that remaining money. Boss was still getting a salary. His base was like $87,000 to begin with. 3 income routes, and on top of that, he was a terrible boss. Story 21 had a manager, male, make a comment about a female manager's ass while in a Zoom call. He thought he was being funny, got him fired. What was most interesting about this was the lady he made the comment about. The two of them were pretty friendly, and this was not out of line of their normal daily banter. But he said it in front of a regional manager, so he had to go. Story 22. Guy's wife was going through long, lingering death from cancer. Whole office is there for him for years while they are going through treatment, then hospice. She dies. First day back from the funeral, he and the head of HR announce they are engaged. Then they get married a few weeks later. People were flipping out, but nothing ever came of it. She knew all his insurance details about his wife's care, about her life insurance, his retirement, that he owned his home and a rental house. The payoff was worth risking her job. Story 23. We had a facility in the Netherlands, which was a frequent destination for collaboration. Obviously, substances is legal there, but it hadn't been legalized here at all yet. So some git FedExes a big bag of it to HQ. He was a git because he left his name off the shipping docks, but not on the interior package full of substances. So the mailroom opened the package to see if they could direct it to the right party. Needless to say, he was gone immediately, accompanied by some law enforcement folks. Story 24. That someone had video footage of our boss having sex with one of the employees. I was that employee that was having lots of sex with her. So I got another job and I still get to bang her. Story 25. CEO was caught hooking up with the head of accounting in his office on a weekend. CEO then took all the petty cash, drained whatever he could out of the business account, and both of them fled to Honduras. It was a pretty crazy exit as the company went down in flames less than a month later after all the hidden accounts that were in default and collections came to light. People took the computers, desks, chairs, TVs, etc. as payment for their missing paychecks upon their exit. Story 26. The branch manager at a company I worked for in Wilkes-Barre, Pa was a complete idiot and had gone on vacation to Jamaica over Christmas break. When he came back, he showed us this picture of him rubbing sunscreen on the back of some woman named Rager, who turned out to our big boss from corporate, Jane. Our warehouse guy, Dave, emailed the picture all over the company. Most of the warehouse guys who previously hated Mitchell gained a lot of respect for him that day, though. Story 27. Girl dated a guy, A, and got pregnant, then broke up with him to date another coworker, B. 3 months postpartum, and she's pregnant again with the new guy's B baby, but he cheats on her with a coworker, new woman, and now she's dating another coworker, C. Law enforcement, if you couldn't guess. Story 28. Not current job, but a previous one. Almost all of the C-suite executives were men. Harassment was rampant. Christmas parties were practically group sex by the end of the night as everyone had a hotel room. Well, one woman filed a lawsuit for harassment, and the company was turned upside down. All of the executives were let go and replaced with women. Story 29. A previous coworker was so stressed out by the manager that he hurt his own foot to get days off because his request got denied 2 months in advance. Manager ended up fleeing the country after the secretary inadvertently discovered she was stealing tens of thousands from the practice. Also, the place shut down because someone stole all of the ducking computers overnight. Coming to find out, the security camera was basically just a prop, so it's anyone's guess who snatched everything. Story 30. While in the army up at Fort Lewis, one of the brigade commanders I met was cool as the other side of the pillow, shook his hand, and got a nice award from him. I transferred to Fort Bragg in NC, and come to find out a year later, he holds his entire family at gunpoint and almost has a shootout with the Seattle police force. PTSD is no joke, and don't let anyone ever tell you different. What is the current drama at your workplace? Story 1. A girl claimed that insects and spiders have a gay population like squirrels do, and 2 guys called her woke as duck. So now there is a dispute with human resources happening about inclusivity in the workplace, just because there were 2 spider rows hanging out in a corner. Story 2. One of the doctors has been treating patient and doing surgery with a suspended license and didn't tell us. The reason his license is suspended is because he hasn't paid his child support. Story 3. I work at a distribution center, and there's a cat living in the back lot, where all of the outdoor products too large for the shelves in the building stay. Some people want to keep him a secret, so he'll stick around. Some want to take him, others want to kick him out completely. I'm voting someone take him. There's lots of forklifts out there. What if he runs out in front of 1 story 4? Someone keeps leaving crap on the outside of the toilet bowl in the women's restroom. We've gotten multiple emails about it at this point, one of which included a picture. The ensuing gossip has been wild. Story 5. I recently started a new job, and I'm finding that all of my coworkers thrive on gossiping about each other, and it's genuinely exhausting. Like the entire day, it's non-stop chatter about really petty carny things, and I'm struggling to open up and do any sort of small talk because I don't want people taking anything I say and talking about me behind my back. It's so awkward to just smile and nod while a grown-ass man caring at you like a gossipy teenager. On our lunch breaks, they all sit around the table and just keep careening. I've been reading my book on lunch, and sometimes they'll interrupt me to ask my opinion on whatever they are caring about. Like, do you agree that Dave's new girlfriend dresses like a hobo? Like itty gaff guys. Story 6. Boss gets a quick job from his secretary almost every morning. They're really quiet about it, save for all of us watching her come out. His office door every morning, blushing with her hair a little messier than when she went in. Story 7. We had to fire a guy for outsourcing his work. We weren't talking to Bob. Bob lives in Florida. The person Bob hired lived in China and pretended to be Bob. Bob ducked up by having a replacement laptop sent to a laptop farm instead of his home address. Story 8. We had a senior manager who resigned after working at the company for 8-ish years. He was really close to the CEO and his own manager, exec director. The company decided to throw him a farewell drinks, and a whole meeting was set up to send him off. The exec director made sure all his direct reports come into the office for said farewell. At the farewell meeting, both the exec director and CEO shared personal stories about the manager, really personal stories like how they all text each other's families, CEO dog sits for the manager, went on coffee catch-ups during lockdown, etc. Also, the CEO's EA created a presentation slideshow of photos. A lot of photos were of the manager having drinks with other execs, CEO, HR team. Also, the CEO sent 2 emails about this person's resignation. The first one was very formal and focused more on new people coming on board and some recent promotions. He then later sent a correction email to say that he got feedback on his first email and wanted to send another informal email. He spoke more about the manager and concluded by saying he was his most favorite person in the business. Everyone just found the whole thing awkward and weird. No one's got any special treatment, unlike this manager. And now everyone is convinced that the business works on favoritism. Story 9. A woman old enough that she had fully adult children announced to several coworkers that she'd just found out she's pregnant with twins. As the months went by, she continued to talk about it in vague detail, but never shared sonograms or anything, and her physical appearance never significantly changed, though she'd say things early on like, "These pants are starting to get tight." No one at work believed she was actually pregnant, but the whole scenario was so odd, people really didn't know what to make of it, so they'd ask polite questions and engage her when she brought it up. The funny thing was that she'd talked about it openly to everyone at work, except for her department manager, who couldn't directly ask. Then, One day, the last month or two before her supposed due date, she quit without notice. In the year or two she'd worked with us, she was always kind of socially awkward, abrupt, and scatterbrained, but didn't come across as detached from reality or even particularly attention-seeking, so it all kind of came out of left field. Later learned from someone who knew her from elsewhere that she'd done this before at multiple previous jobs. Story 10. My fiance and I work at the same company, as well as my fiance's twin. Said twin quit once a while back in order to work at the same place as her crush. But when the crush rejected her, she came back and started stirring more drama because she's unhappy she's not in a relationship. She's also unhappy she didn't apply to college, and we did, and is upset we're making a life together while one-upping her. The twin has just again recently quit to work at a gas station because she said she needs that sense of control over people, but she's already treading on thin ice there. I'm friends with one of her new coworkers, and he said that she's already started bullying and harassing people again, and that she'll likely get fired soon if she doesn't shape up. Everybody at my workplace hopes she doesn't come back but since we have such a high turnover rate, our manager will probably hire her back again. I guess this drama is leaning closer to family drama, but all of my coworkers have also had a hard time with her as well. Story 11. I work in a remote call center. My team leader has some serious beef with the schedulers. Whenever I have a coaching or she pulls us into a team meeting, she mentions how unhappy she is with the people in charge of the schedules. Apparently, she repeatedly tells them to add or alter things in the work schedules, but they never do what they are supposed to do. The management has got so bad that we sometimes don't even have a point of contact if our team leader isn't in. The people behind the schedules were originally supposed to make it so that we'd always be working the same day as our team leader. Instead, they have given us a schedule where our team leader is off on 2 of the days that we are working in a given week, and in work on our rest days. It wouldn't be so bad if they ensured our team leader had cover, but they seemingly forgot that part. Instead, whenever myself or anyone in the same team as me gets a caller asking for a manager, we have to fob them off by saying there isn't anyone available. It's a bit of a mess. Story 12. A couple, calling them A and B, cheated on each other with 2 other people in the same department, C and D without the other knowing, but they're too stupid and financially not well off, so they can't break up and have to live with and awkwardly carpool to work with each other. C and D refused to take a transfer to make things less awkward. Story 13. It's not work, it's from the last school year. As a final project, we must do a very detailed research work on a topic we choose, almost like a university research article. Because it is so complex and demanding, many of my colleagues are having a hard time. In that case, one of the girls who in kind words is lazy, and doesn't like to study, tried to convince the entire class not to hand in the work, mainly because she hadn't been able to do anything. And many agreed, but the plan went awry because several of the students had already submitted their work and the professor in charge of the project had already regraded them. The lazy woman and her friends went to the teacher to complain about how unfair it all was. They were so rude to the teacher that he told them that if they were so dissatisfied with the work, he would not accept them and the grade would be 0. They were so scared that they apologized and, as it were, left with their tails between their legs. Story 14. Our CFO and head of HR keeps falling asleep in meetings, even one-on-ones or conference calls with vendors. He is awful at communications, even as far as writing emails or verbally communicating with staff. I've had to literally stand over his shoulder and tell him what to type, in a friendly tone, helpful way, not a frustrating way. He also has untreated ADHD. I have to write a lot of his all-hands emails/letters to federal and state agencies, and co-manage all of his departments. I'm fairly close with him, so I've brought it up, and he says he has a medical condition for the sleeping thing and ADHD, and I've strongly urged him to get medication or something for correction. He has outright refused to acknowledge the problem even exists. Most people in the office disrespect him because of these issues that he seems to do nothing about. Then he gripes to me about the lack of respect. He's a nice guy, and I feel for him, but he really needs to try to do something about this. Story 15. Colleague number 1 is on leave for a couple months for an undisclosed reason. Colleague number 2, after a few weeks, says, I hope her and her family are doing well. Colleague number 3 overheard this and texts number 1 to tell her number 2 is telling everyone she's getting a divorce. 1 starts a respectful workplace investigation against number 2. It's a long, stressful process. I get called in as a witness. Nothing comes of it because number 3 obviously lied. Everyone in the entire department knows she's a pathological liar, including management and number 1. It gets dropped, obviously. Who is a lovely human with nothing to hide. Yet there's absolutely no consequences for number 3 for making up a horrible lie and wasting everyone's time. And number 3 are still good friends and are still treating number 2 like she's done something wrong. The union protects the innocents and the a-holes alike from any consequences. Oh, by the way, we're all in our 30s and way too old to be acting this way. Story 16. I work for the USPS and live in a red state. Half of my fellow carriers are MAGA heads that like to bring politics into work. So much so that they've been displaying their certain political views on their cases and work vehicles, which is a massive violation of the Hatch Act. My friend brought this to our postmaster's attention, in which he got pretty upset. He had a meeting with the whole office and told everyone that it's a violation of their oath to have those things displayed on federal property and could result in their termination, forcing them to take down their political displays. The affected parties started throwing huge fits during the meeting, so far as to bring up the First Amendment and that he couldn't tell them they couldn't have those things displayed on federal property. Now they've began a witch hunt to find out who sold them out. The tension in the office has been so gross since then. Story 17. I have one coworker, an electronics tech in a small store, who's both gone off the deep end with weird religious conspiracy theories, while also expressing a concerning level of despair. I'm talking, I understand God's messages through numerology and scripture, and he determined that I should be abandoned as I'm not worthy of his grace. Just had a talk with the boss today about it. We're not sure how to handle intervention, or if it's even our place at all. This guy lost a lot of money gambling both at casinos and on crypto, and has a problematic adult son who makes his life even more difficult. I'm not sure how to address his fatalism, since it's partially his fault and partially something outside of his control that he's responsible for. Or if I even should at all. Story 18. This girl had only been working with us for a month, and she was getting in her car to leave for the day, so she put it in reverse and looked down and saw a spider on her leg. She then proceeded to accidentally floor it while getting out of the moving car, and the car hit the building and damaged it structurally. The company I work for is full of cheap idiots, and they haven't closed to have the damage repaired because it would put us more behind our year-end goals to have no one in the building for the day. Story 19. The night custodian was making advances at an office coworker of mine, whose husband passed away. She did not reciprocate the many offers he made, and he is very mad about it and will not clean up around her desk anymore or do anything she needs to get done. Honestly, it started out as a funny, I can't believe he's this petty. But now it's been a daily topic of conversation for almost 2 years, and I'm sick of it. I'm a little worried about what might happen if she ever drops the topic, because IDK what she'd talk about anymore. I can't even remember what she talked about before this. It's been all-consuming. Story 20. Coworker has an arrangement to be 15 minutes late every day to drop her child off at school. This arrangement has been in place for 20-ish years over multiple children. We have a lot of other working parents that have never been approved for an arrangement like this. So there's always been friction. This year, when school started, our boss told her that since the child is now 16 and the school is open 1 hour before work begins, he was not going to allow her to be late anymore. She has yet to be on time for a single day of work. Story 21. I work in maintenance at a warehouse, and there was a room on the floor which had blinds up on the windows and AC, so lots of guys would hang out in there waiting for service calls, since it was a quiet, cool, centralized location. Apparently, like half the guys got a little too comfortable and watching adult film. They got caught and the room was blocked off now, so everyone is pissed at the guys who ducked it up for everyone. Crazy part is they weren't fired on the spot, because it would have been half the crew terminated. Now they are all getting watched like a hawk and getting write-ups for random things that were never an issue before, so they can buy time while they rehire and train the replacements. Story 22. A guy at our place had a relationship with a girl in the same office. They were both going through marriage separations at the time. They just needed each other. They literally sit next to each other. For about a year, the relationship that they had was apparently physical. They just needed to duck each other at the time to help with their situations. Now the girl has decided to not want the guy anymore and is actively looking at dating sites while at work. He still desperately wants her though. She is meeting up with guys from the dating app just to get what she wants, to just duck and let off steam. The guy knows exactly what she is doing as she's being very coy and smiling and laughing at the dating texts she's receiving. It's driving him insane. Story 23. During an office birthday celebration, the guy whose birthday it was got surprisingly drunk quickly from one beer. He then told an attractive female coworker that if he were 20 years younger, he would have had her, and then abruptly stopped. She was quite shocked and complained to HR, and the guy was called in and insisted that he actually wanted to say, "I would have had you promoted," but he lost track of his thoughts. So now the drama is a big debate. Either he meant it sexually, or if he's speaking the truth, that he meant to give her a promotion. So it's open to interpretation. Story 24. Turns out my boss is a power-tripping craphead who's positioned herself as shielded and hidden as possible. Lid came off recently, and we're all waiting for her to come back post-vacation to deal with it. Found out over time, not just from direct team members, but other employees too. Everyone felt the same. Important people just weren't informed for years due to others' fear of retaliation from her. Crap's gonna be interesting soon for sure. A lot of positives have come from the conversations concerning it the past few weeks. Story 25. We got 2 new people at our job, and there's this one girl that I went to college with. No one likes her because she's a micromanager, even though she worked there a shorter amount of time than people, let's call her Tay, and she always helps a customer you was already helping, like you aren't able to do it yourself. So my coworker said that one of the new girls is starting to be friends with Tay, and I said that the longer they work with us, the more they'll see that they're not likable. But part of me is doubting that because I think the new girl is on the spectrum, and she's really nice, so who knows?